Hello, welcome back to my one ingredient adventure where we find a lot of one fairly common ingredient and have fun with it, just letting the cooking gods take us away. Today, we're talking peaches. I got my peaches out in Georgia. Oh, yeah. I actually very recently learned from a new friend about this thing called the peach truck. Their whole thing is about bringing these beautifully sweet peaches from Georgia to the rest of the country. And when I finally got to try it, I fell in love. So naturally, I bought a 25-pound box. I gotta show you. 25 pounds of peaches. It's crazy. There's so much I want to do with this. And so began my peach frenzy. I started building a list of recipes I wanted to try. I actually think I went a little overboard. Fun fact though, the peach truck actually has their own recipe cookbook. Fantastic recipe book. A lot of what you'll see today are also adaptations of what's in here, so highly recommend if you want to go crazy with peaches. Let's get peachy. So the very first thing I actually wanted to make with these peaches is peach syrup. This is one of those great base foundational recipes that just make a lot of sense to start with. You can use it in anything really. Drinks, desserts, sauces, it's just super versatile. 4 ingredients: peaches, lemon, sugar, water. But to make it even more intriguing, we're gonna be making it in a microwave. I know, right? It sounds a little unconventional for syrup making. I was also skeptical myself, but there's something about using the microwave that actually preserves the peach flavor even better. So we'll see. So all my ingredients are in here. There's no stirring required. I'm just wrapping it all super tightly to trap that steam in. And then this goes straight into the microwave. I heat it up for about 5 minutes or so. You can kind of see it really poof up in there. Just being very careful with the unwrapping here because that steam is very hot. But you can see the magic's already happening. The liquid in here is already this like super vibrant reddish pink, and that's all natural. Crazy, right? There's still some bits of sugar though, so I popped it in again for another 5 minutes, and now it's pretty much done. Isn't that wild? So here I'm just straining the liquid out, and the peaches left over in here, these are basically candied. They are delicious to just eat as is. You can also jamify them. I'm actually gonna be saving this to make some sticky buns in just a second. Hold on to that thought. For now though, I'm just making my syrup a little more liquidy by whisking in some boiling water. The moment it was safe to handle though, I immediately made some peach tea, literally just black tea and a generous splash of the syrup, and this is delicious. The peachiness of the syrup is genuinely just so vibrant. This is the level of peach I would want in my peach tea. The more of the syrup is going to be used later on in a tiramisu of sorts, but for now, moving on to our next thing, some sticky buns. So I really wanted to make a bread type item with these peaches. I also wanted to make something that was a little more indulgent, and so the moment I saw these in the book titled The Ultimate Sticky Bun, I knew I had to make them. I will say it's not the easiest to make, but it's definitely worth the commitment. The dough alone actually takes 2 days to make, with the promise of it being, buttery and soft. So as you can imagine, this is a high-fat dough. There's whole milk in here, eggs, and butter. The butter also does take some time to incorporate, but a trick I learned in culinary school is actually to smear the butter onto the dough. One generous dab at a time. You can even fold it in if you'd like. This just helps the butter stay in place better. Eventually though, I do have my beautiful dough baby here. Tuck it in for the night in the fridge so the flavor can slowly develop. And then for the filling, to really put that peachiness into the bun, the idea is to kind of make a quick jam of sorts. So I'm cooking down my chopped peaches with some sugar, lemon zest, juice, and a touch of cinnamon. And because I'm going to be wrapping this into the dough eventually, I'm really just trying to make sure that there's very little liquid left. Crush it a little more here. And remember those candied peaches from earlier? I also went ahead and added that. So then this can cool with the dough in the fridge. And on to the next day, we have the sticky part. The glaze is where things get really indulgent. We're talking butter, brown sugar, honey, a pinch of salt, all combined and heated gently, whisked until it becomes this extremely luxurious caramel sauce. A little bit of vanilla later, and this drizzle here kind of reminds me of those, you know, high-end luxury ice cream commercials. So this goes directly into the pan that I'm baking the buns in. Just this thick layer of delicious caramel. I'm also tossing in some candied pecans for that extra bit of crunch. So while this is cooling off to a side, I can get started on my dough, which is now pretty much a giant pillow. So I'm just trying to press the air out and roll it out into a rectangular shape and just slather on my condensed peach jam. Really just trying to pack in as much peach flavor as possible. Probably made my job of rolling later a lot harder than it should have been. It took a lot more finessing than expected. The dough is definitely getting a little soft though, so I'm trying to work fast here, cutting it up into about 9 pieces. These little pinwheels can go straight into our caramel pan where they're going to rise again for about an hour. Now they are extra poofy, looking like cinnamon rolls. So now like this, they can go into the oven. And this is what it looks like an hour later. Nice golden brown color, but that's not it. Remember, the key here is to flip it at the end. So I'm letting it cool in this upside down position for 10 minutes. And here we have the reveal. This honestly looked even better than I thought it would. That caramel dripping down the sides, the perfectly caramelized pecans with the ooey gooey peach filling. I had to taste one immediately. I am being so serious when I say that this might be actually legitimately one of the most divine bites I've ever had. The bread is soft and pillowy. It's essentially like the most ideal milk rolls with this buttery taste that goes so well with the caramelized peaches, the brown sugar. This took so much work, but I will most likely do it again just for another bite. It's that good. This next one is a complete wild card for me. I know grilled peaches are a thing, but one, I've never actually made them before, and two, I did not know that they could be enjoyed with shishito peppers. This is why I love recipe books. I love discovering new combinations. It's honestly not too much prep work either. All it calls for is just to slice up the peaches into wedges and to coat both the fruit and the peppers in oil. The original recipe actually calls to cook them on skewers, but since I'm just doing this at home, I'm just going straight for it. Starting with the shishito peppers, which need to cook for a longer time to get that nice char. I love shishito peppers. I always order them when I go out. Once they're all properly blistered, that's when I can get started on the peaches. These cook super fast. So I'm just giving them a little under a minute on each side just to get these nice grill marks, and that's it. The last thing to do is really just to season it. So I'm going in with some lemon juice and zest, of course, fresh parsley, some chives, and a little more olive oil. The finishing touch though is this smoked sea salt that I love having around. Just adds a nice smoky flavor to tie everything together. And then I thought it'd be fun to serve it on some Greek yogurt. And I really enjoyed this one. I feel like this is something that I would actually order at a restaurant. So easy to put together, but it looks so fancy. All right, now that we're on the path of savory foods, I know that another thing that I really wanted to make with these peaches was some type of condiment. If you know me, you know I love putting fruit in savory things. I put it in my beef noodle soup, I put it in my curry, though I honestly think I landed on barbecue sauce because I was craving chicken nuggets and I wanted something to dip it in, so here we are, Peachy BBQ Sauce. I also knew that I wanted to make a really big batch to give to friends, so there's a lot of peaches being used up here. A lot of chopping too, but mostly just to get them down into smaller pieces so I can puree them a little more easily. This sauce is about to be real fruity. They also have this perfect texture where it just becomes this beautifully smooth puree in just a few blitzes that I would be happy to drink as is. So now to build the base of my sauce. I'm starting with sweating down my onions, which really just waiting until they're super soft and sweet. I only added my garlic at the very end here because I really didn't want it to burn. But then in goes this peach puree, just this waterfall of gorgeous peachiness. Then the rest of the seasoning, so there's a lot of brown sugar actually, some Worcestershire sauce and some apple cider vinegar for that tang, a little bit of spice. Also a lot of black pepper. This was requested by my barbecue savvy friend. Also put in some smoked paprika and just a smidge of liquid smoke. And like all good things, this does take some time to simmer down. So I let this cook slowly for about an hour or so. The only thing I'm adding at the very end here is some yellow mustard, you know, just to brighten it up a little more with some more acidity. And because I wanted to make sure it was completely smooth for a luxurious barbecue sauce experience, I just gave it a little whirl with my immersion blender at the end until it has the consistency of, you know, cream of mushroom, cream of peach. I ended up bottling several jars of this. They were the perfect gifts for my barbecue obsessed friends. There was still a lot left though, so this big one's here for me. I did also immediately enjoy this with some chicken tenders, which was a very good decision. I don't even like barbecue sauce like that, but there is something about this barbecue sauce. It just has this perfect balance of sweet, tangy, and smoky. I keep getting messages from my friends who have been enjoying this in different ways, so can confirm it really does bring much joy. On to a fun one. You know those like peach ring gummies? The ones that are red and yellow? I'm kind of obsessed with them, and I wanted to see if I could actually make them with real peaches for fun, for self-consumption. So to start off, I'm blending my peaches until they're completely smooth, you know, get our peach puree again, and just have that ready while I bloom the gelatin on the side here in some lemon juice. There is quite a lot of gelatin, so it might need some help with like a good vigorous mix. Then back to the puree, which I'm just gently heating with a little bit of that homemade Costco lemon honey. The gelatin just goes in straight once it's warm, and I just need to get it to the point of being completely dissolved. And there it is. That's the gummy mixture. The thing is, we could also just make the rings like this, but I really wanted that classic peach ring look, so I just separated some of the mixture out and added some red food coloring, so now we have both the red and the orange. What I didn't know though is that making that half-half split effect is trickier than I thought. The only way to do it properly is to actually squeeze in both mixtures at the same time. There's no way around it. This may have taken me about half an hour. My hands were shaking at the end, but we did it. They look correct-ish. And I gave them an hour to set in the fridge, mainly so I could then peel them out gently and get this little perfect jelly peach donut. The thing is though, right now, if you eat it as is, it just tastes and feels like Jell-O. In order to get that proper chewiness, you know, that gummy texture you want, it needs time to dry. At least 2 full days of air drying. So that's the real torturous bit, really. But look, 48 hours later, this is what they look like. They're much smaller in size. You can see that they've really shrunken a lot. But the beautiful thing about that is that it also actually concentrates the flavor a lot more. I did also just want to give it like a sweet sour note, so I just tossed it in some sugar with a bit of citric acid added in there. And let me tell you, the texture of it now is really like you're eating a peach gummy, but with the intensity of the flavors of a real juicy peach. Pretty much like the peach syrup earlier in flavor, but in gummy form. Now back to the crazy for a little bit, because this one's another experimental wild card. Peach gazpacho. You know, I've always associated gazpacho with tomatoes only, but this is another one from the recipe book that has changed my perspective. So far, I've been using the peaches skin on for the most part, but for this one, I wanted to really make sure that it had that golden color at the end, so I decided to blanch the peaches, which just makes it a lot easier to peel the skin off. It just comes right off, and now it almost looks like a very shiny apple actually when it's naked like this. Also makes it very easy and efficient to just chop up super quick, along with my peeled cucumbers and my chopped cilantro on the side. The base is really that simple. Just all the fresh ingredients in the blender with some apple cider vinegar, some good olive oil and sea salt, also just a splash of water, and that just needs to blend until it's silky smooth, and there it is, that golden color I was looking for. The key part of this recipe though is to remember to chill it overnight. So you do want this to be at a chilled temperature when you serve it. I'm just dressing it up with some diced peaches and cucumber at the very top for garnish, tiny perfect cilantro leaf, and this honestly feels elegant enough for a dinner party. Moving now into my dessert experiments. I was very fascinated by this recipe for cold poached peaches. It's not really poaching in the traditional sense. It's almost more like a luxurious overnight peach bath. Hear me out. So we start off by making the syrup, a boozy syrup that uses some sugar, lemon juice, and well, the original take uses peach schnapps, but it seemed like any sweet alcohol of your choice would work just as well. So I went with Lillet for, some of those gentle floral notes. The syrup does need to be completely cold before the peaches go in there. So I let this chill in the fridge for a couple of hours, which is why this is me recording later that night in the dark. I did try to find a container that would submerge the peach halves completely. I also gave these a 180 rotation the next morning, but pretty much just let them sit in there for about 2 days, and here they are, transformed. Still firm enough to hold their shape, but 100% infused with that boozy syrup. I'm serving these up with some freeze-dried strawberries added to the poaching liquid, and also 2 scoops of this seasonal peaches and panna ice cream from my favorite Cafe Panna. Top it off with some granola, and it's one of those desserts that look way fancier than the effort involved. The perfect dessert for a summer evening with or without friends. Now finally, this is where our peach syrup in the beginning makes its comeback. I love making tiramisu. It is one of my favorite desserts to enjoy and to make. So I thought, why not make a peach tiramisu? I also still have some of these little boxes left over from my strawberry shortcake video, so figured I'd just have some fun with it and see what I can whip up. So to set things up, these lady fingers were already in my pantry. They're smaller and crunchier than your standard, but I love using them in my tiramisu. Here I have my peach syrup and also my leftover poached peach liquid. I thought maybe I'd go half and half to make a new version for maximum peach impact. Peaches are also poached, chopped, and ready to go. For the cream, I'm mixing some mascarpone with my peach syrup, some vanilla extract, and just a dash of almond extract. Once that's all beaten together, looking a very fluffy pink, I'm just folding in some freshly whipped cream and, keeping it light and airy. Now onto the assembly. I have my little army of boxes ready to go right here. The process is, as always, kind of therapeutic in its repetition. The ladyfingers are dipped in the peachy syrup, followed by a layer of mascarpone, then a blanket of fresh diced peaches. And I will say I am being very generous with the peaches here because I do have 25 pounds of peaches after all. More cream on top of that, more lady fingers, and then more cream, more lady fingers. You get the idea. The top gets loaded with more fresh peaches again, no holding back. And then a final sprinkle of lemon zest, and the lids can go on. They look so perfect. I just love using these little boxes for individual cakes. Tiramisu, however, is unfortunately always better the next day, so I did have to wait overnight for it to set. But now the lady fingers have softened just right, the flavors meld, everything becomes cohesive, and when you dig in, you get every single one of these flavors. The burst of peach with like hints of nutty floral notes, the richness of the cream. My biggest regret is wishing I wrote the recipe down. Let me know in the comments if you want it, and I will. I promise. I will work on it. Last but not least, we're almost out of peaches here. If you're like, Inga, These are great, but they're all too complicated. Don't worry, I got you. All you gotta do is freeze a peach, that's right. Make sure it's very cold and it's rock hard. Grab a grater and just start grating it directly into a bowl. That's all you have to do because, my friend, this is one of the best shaved peach ice you can get out there. Nothing but pure fruit, ice cold, can be enjoyed with a drizzle of honey or a squeeze of lime, and it will just melt beautifully in your mouth. If you have peaches at home right now, highly recommend go put it in there ASAP. There it is, all the different ways I worked through my 25 pounds of peaches, many of which I also did actually enjoy. As is, there's just something so special about peak season produce that makes you wanna use it in all the ways possible. If you end up trying any of these, let me know. If there's another ingredient you want me to do a deep dive in, leave them in the comments below. As always, if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe. Otherwise, stay peachy and I will see you in the next one. Bye.